Let's really unpack this. Imagine you hit refresh on your ad dashboard one morning, right?
Yeah.
And bam, your best campaigns just gone, nuked. Your main traffic source. Suddenly, nothing. A dead end. And look, this isn't some, made-up disaster story for marketers.
No, it's actually happening.
According to the sources we're diving into today, it's the brutal reality of this traffic source apocalypse 2025. Especially, it seems, if you're in those volatile areas like gambling or health supplements.
Yeah, what's really striking is how these platform restrictions, they haven't just nudged things. They've basically redrawn the whole map for making money online, particularly in these, high-stakes verticals.
High value, high risk.
Exactly. The sources you've got, they tracked, over 200 banned campaigns across all the big platforms.
Wow.
So you get this really detailed picture, like a map, showing where specific ads, iGaming, Nutra are just hitting a wall.
Blocked hard.
Right. But also, crucially, where they are still finding some way through, finding traction.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive feels pretty straightforward then. We need to figure out why. Why have the big guys, Facebook, Google, TikTok, become such compliance nightmares for these specific ad types?
Yeah, the why is key.
And even more important, I think, is figuring out where the actual opportunities have gone. Where have they shifted? This adapt or die thing the sources mention. What does that actually mean for you, the listener, trying to make sense of this chaos right now?
Well, the sheer scale of the disruption highlighted in the sources, it's genuinely stark. We're talking millions, potentially, in lost revenue.
Right.
And platforms like TikTok, Facebook, Google, they used to be the go-to channels, right?
Absolutely. Bread and butter for many.
Now, they're described as these compliance minefields that can just, shut your whole operation down practically overnight. Hours, sometimes.
Okay, let's jump into that then. This great platform purge, as they call it.
Yeah.
Kicking off with TikTok, the sources say the situation in 2025 is proper dire. Sounds like those initial security worries just kept snowballing.
Oh, they definitely did. The sources detail this global domino effect. The U.S., like everyone predicted, brought in a full ban January 2025. Right. So that's it. Over 170 million potential users, poof, gone, including that really valuable 18 to 34 demographic everyone wants.
Huge loss.
And it's not just the U.S. The EU, heavy restrictions now under the Digital Services Act, the DSA.
DSA, making waves.
Big time. It's basically blocking a lot of gambling and Nutra creatives because platforms are trying to stay compliant. India banned TikTok way back in 2020, remember?
Yeah, it was early.
That's another 200 million users off the table. We've seen bans in Albania, a total ban in Afghanistan. It's spread.
What feels kind of wild, almost mental, as the source puts it, isn't just the bans, but how fast it happens.
Yeah.
One day you're scaling like crazy, next day, poof, whole traffic source just vanished.
Exactly. And that speed, that velocity, it's not just TikTok. Meta's platforms, Facebook, Instagram, they're called absolute nightmares in the sources.
Nightmares for gambling and Nutra affiliates trying to advertise directly, I assume.
Yeah, directly. Their automated AI moderation, it's become incredibly aggressive. It spots patterns that maybe worked a little while ago, almost instantly now.
So what are the specifics? The sources list some key things hitting affiliates hard, right?
Like instant bans for before and after pictures. Those were huge for Nutra.
Staple tactic. Gone.
Gone. Loads of documentation, licensing hurdles for gambling ads, and significantly better cloak detection. Those older tricks, pretty much useless now.
So accounts just get suspended, like within hours.
That's what they're saying, hours after a campaign goes live sometimes. It really hammers home that point about compliance being, non-negotiable now.
It sounds almost insane, like the source says, compared to just a year ago.
Totally. Look at Google's new gambling policy from April 2025. It needs extra licensing, mandatory responsible gambling messages everywhere.
Everywhere, wow.
Facebook's tightening up fast, too. And a big one for NutriMeta now wants verified business licenses just for basic supplement ads, not even ones making strong health claims.
Just for basic supplement promotion. That's intense.
Yeah.
So, okay, Google Ads must be feeling similar heat. The source calls it the white hat only zone for these kinds of things.
Precisely. Google's updated policies, they make trying to run anything in that gray area almost impossible, unless you have extremely sophisticated and frankly risky cloaking.
How are they doing it?
They're using advanced AI. It automatically rejects health claims if there's no solid scientific backing. It detects banned ingredients, tightens up the geo restrictions for gambling offers, and supplement ads. way more manual reviews now.
So basically, those generic Nutra campaigns that were maybe making money last year.
Getting flagged, rejected almost immediately. That seems to be the tough reality the sources are describing.
And beyond the platforms themselves, there are just places where advertising is impossible or super risky, right? Geographic blocks.
Yeah, absolutely. The sources highlight some regions that are just really tough nuts to crack.
Like where?
Well, China. Still pretty much impenetrable for most Western affiliate campaigns. Big platforms are blocked. The Great Firewall,
Right.
Russia. Since they designated Meta an extremist organization, forget account stability. Weekly mass bans for anyone even trying to use proxies to advertise there.
Zero stability.
Zero. And the EU, with GDPR, the big data privacy law, and now the DSA we mentioned, they've got supercharged restrictions.
Supercharged.
Yeah, it means platforms are basically filtering or blocking almost everything just to avoid getting hit with massive fines for non-compliance.
Enhanced moderation, stricter age checks, localization needs, transparency reports.
Yeah.
The EU really does sound like trying to navigate a legal and technical maze for these offers.
It is. It really is.
Okay, let's zoom in on Nutri specifically then. The source claims it's become one of the hardest verticals to run profitably in 2025. Why is that?
Well, the margins have just been squeezed like crazy. All these restrictions plus more competition.
Yeah.
It's tough. The sources say running Nutra on Facebook now needs, quote, military-grade precision.
Military grade? What does that even mean in practice?
It means stuff like intense account farming, like building up account trust for months before you even try to launch an ad.
Months. Wow.
Using only educational angles or maybe story-type ads. Zero direct health claims. Definitely no before-afters. Using influencer-style creative so it doesn't scream ad.
Blending in.
Exactly. And constantly, rapidly changing your creatives because they burn out or get flagged super fast.
And there was a tough statistic in there too, wasn't there? About costs.
Yeah, this is stark. Most affiliates reporting 60 to 70% higher CPAs.
Cost per acquisition. So how much it costs to get one customer.
Right. 60, 70% higher than last year. And alongside that, much lower approval rates for the ads they do try to run.
Ouch. And the Google ad side for Nutra. Just as bad.
Just as intense, like you said, the compliance maze. It demands verifiable scientific proof for every single claim, whether it's in the ad or on the landing page.
Every claim.
Every claim. Verified ingredient lists, health product certifications if they apply, transparent business info. The smart affiliates, the sources suggest, are pivoting. They're building audiences first with genuinely educational content before they even think about promoting a product.
Build trust first, sell later.
That seems to be the winning play now.
Okay, let's slip over to gambling. The sources say it still remains massively profitable if you can actually find ways to get traffic around all these restrictions.
Yeah, the money's still there. iGaming revenue globally still projected to hit over, $127 billion by 2027? But yeah, access is the massive hurdle.
Access to the audience.
Exactly. Those platform restrictions we talked about are severe. TikTok's basically a no-go globally for gambling ads now.
Right.
Facebook, only properly licensed operators, super strict compliance. Google demands tons of paperwork for a white hat approach. Even the official Telegram ads have restrictions on gambling.
Okay, wait. So if all the main doors are slamming shut, where are the smart affiliates finding profitable gambling traffic in 2025, according to these sources?
See, this is where it gets really interesting. And it really shows that adaptation piece.
The pivot.
The pivot. The sources point very strongly to the rise of alternative gambling ad networks. Places like Exoclick, Propeller Ads, Rich Ads.
Okay. Why them?
They are described as absolutely crushing it because unlike Facebook or Google, they don't have the same super restrictive content policies. They often have compliance teams who actually understand the gambling vertical.
Centralized knowledge.
Right. They often deliver higher conversion rates because the traffic is more intent-based. People on these sites are often looking for this stuff. And crucially, they can provide consistent traffic volume regardless of what the big social platforms decide to do next week.
Reliable, less volatile, makes sense.
Right.
But the source also mentioned something that sounded like a hidden gold mine. Somewhere less obvious. Telegram mini apps.
Yes, this is fascinating. It's how affiliates are using them. They're running ads inside bots and these tap-to-earn games that exist within the Telegram ecosystem.
Inside the games.
Inside the games and bots. The sources report there are currently, quote, zero content restrictions in those specific mini-app ad placements.
Zero, really.
Apparently so. Within those specific spots, they're finding incredibly low CPCs cost per click, like starting as low as 0.015 for gambling ads.
Wow, that's low.
Super low. Minimal ad fatigue because the format's so new. High CTRs, click-through rates because the audiences in these games are engaged. And surprisingly good targeting within specific mini-app communities.
Premium users even.
Seems like it. One case study they mentioned showed a crazy 160% ROI for gambling campaigns using these mini apps compared to traditional social media.
160% ROI. Okay, that is a significant shift. What about the old reliable workhorses, push notifications, native ads? Are they still holding up?
Oh, yeah. They absolutely continue to deliver for a lot of affiliates, according to the sources, mostly because they're opt-in, right? Users subscribe to push notifications or they see native ads embedded in content they're already looking at.
Less intrusive, maybe.
Yeah, kind of. And generally, fewer creative restrictions on most of those networks. You get immediate response from push, good cross-device targeting. The top networks mentioned are still names you'd recognize. Propeller ads for global push, juicy ads for premium native, Adstura for emerging markets. ExoClick is still strong for adult and gambling traffic.
Okay, and geographically, are there new frontiers opening up in this climate, new regions?
Yes, definitely. The sources really highlight Vietnam, Thailand, and Indonesia. They're rapidly becoming absolute gold mines, especially for gambling offers.
Why there specifically?
Huge populations, rapidly growing internet access, significantly less competition from Western affiliates who are all fighting over the same Tier 1 geos.
Right, less saturation.
Exactly. Different cultural views on gambling sometimes, which can help. And just much more affordable traffic compared to, say, the US or Western Europe. Vietnam alone has some huge gambling revenue projections by 2027, so it's a big target.
Interesting. Okay, so given all these roadblocks and the shift to these, let's say, less restricted zones, compliance strategies that actually work must be more critical than ever. What are the sources suggesting there?
Yeah, they put a lot of emphasis on what they're calling the white hat pivot. It seems the most successful affiliates, they're not trying to fight the platforms anymore. They're actually embracing compliance.
So what does that look like?
It means building legitimate businesses, getting proper licenses where you need them, creating genuinely useful, educational, or value-driven content before you ask for the sale.
Building that trust again.
Right. Investing in actual brand development for long-term stability. And working directly with compliant offers from reputable licensed networks. Playing by the rules, basically.
The sources also mentioned advanced cloaking is still a thing, right?
Right.
For the gray campaigns, though it sounds risky.
It is mentioned, yes. And the tech has definitely evolved. They talk about methods using AI-powered filtering to try and weed out bots or platform reviewers, dynamic landing pages that change depending on who's looking, trying to mimic real user behavior, complex multi-layer redirects.
Sounds sophisticated.
It is, but the warning that comes with it is pretty stark. The platform's detection tech is getting better, even faster. And if you get caught, account bans are happening almost instantly now. High risk, high reward, but maybe mostly high risk.
Okay, so boiling all this down, what's the overall adaptation playbook for 2025 based on what these sources are saying?
I think the absolute core message, repeated again and again in the sources, is diversification. It's everything. Affiliates who are just relying on one, maybe two traffic sources, they're the ones getting wiped out.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. The winning approach they suggest is the strategic diversification split. Something like maybe 30% from mainstream platforms, but strictly white hat, fully compliant. Then maybe 40% from those alternative networks we discussed, push, native, gambling-specific ones. 20% exploring emerging platforms like the Telegram mini apps. And then maybe 10% just allocated to testing completely new experimental sources.
A portfolio approach to traffic.
Precisely. And crucially, the sources really stress this. The affiliates who are best set up for long-term success now and going forward are the ones building their own traffic sources.
Owned media.
Absolutely. Putting serious effort into building things like email lists. You own that list, no platform can take away your access to that audience.
Right. Direct access.
Cultivating social media followings, but across multiple channels, not just betting on one. Building content websites that rank in Google for organic SEO traffic. Even developing mobile apps. This whole approach, it gives you a level of immunity from platform whims. It creates a much more sustainable long-term business compared to just constantly renting traffic.
Makes sense. Looking ahead then, the sources predict this trend, these restrictions, it's not slowing down. What's next?
No, they anticipate more. More countries may be banning or heavily restricting TikTok. Even tighter rules around health claims across all platforms. Continued improvements in AI detection for anything gray. And just overall higher compliance costs just to operate legitimately.
That's challenging.
It is. But they also stress, despite the challenges, the opportunities are still massive for people willing to adapt. That global gambling market, still growing fast. Demand for many Nutra products, still strong even with the ad hurdles.
Okay, so let's try and sum up this deep dive. The core shift, it feels undeniable, right? The
Yeah.
era of just easy wins on Facebook or Google for things like gambling and Nutra, it's largely over.
Yeah, aggressive moderation, instant bans, these incredibly demanding compliance rules. They've completely changed the game.
The stats from the sources really hit that home.
Oh.
What was it? 67% of affiliates hit by bans trying to run these offers in 2025.
Yeah, and traffic costs jumping 60–70% on the big platforms for those still trying. With TikTok now banned or restricted in so many key places, Meta's AI constantly nuking accounts. Adaptation isn't just a good idea, it's basically the only way to survive and hopefully succeed.
So the sources clearly map out the necessary pivot, moving your focus, to alternative networks like Push and Native, leveraging those specialized gambling networks, exploring unexpected spots like Telegram mini apps, strategically going into emerging Asian markets.
And embracing compliance, really leaning into it instead of fighting it.
Right. Or, for some, using those advanced but definitely risky cloaking methods, diversifying traffic sources using that kind of split strategy we talked about.
And maybe most importantly for the long run, building your own media assets, email lists, content sites, taking back control.
It's fundamentally not about finding one little loophole anymore, is it? Or exploiting some temporary glitch.
No, not at all. It's about adopting a completely different mindset, a more diversified, often more compliant, more long-term approach to affiliate marketing. That's what the source material really demonstrates.
So, given how fast these platforms change, and the prediction from these sources for even more restrictions coming, here's something for you listening to think about as you consider your own strategies. What does it genuinely mean to build a sustainable affiliate business today? One that's resilient, maybe even kind of immune to these future shocks when platforms change the rules overnight? And how does this whole trend of building your own media, your own audience, fundamentally change the game compared to always relying on paid traffic from platforms you ultimately don't own or control?